Wednesday he played with a much higher intensity than has been seen at the club for a while. And even though the situation wasn't great until the last couple of minutes, you must have been very pleased with the way the players kept going. And when they got the equaliser, it wasn't a relief. They wanted to push on for the winner. How important is that mentality for you going forward?
Well, first of all, I didn't really watch every game before, so it's difficult for me to sort of have a balanced view on how the team played regularly in comparison to the game. What I will say is I think that's just a starting point for us in terms of intensity. You know, I think there's still a long way to go to get to the point where I'd be happy with how we do that. I think that we'll always set out to try and win the game. We want to play at an uncomfortable tempo for the opponent. I don't think, like you say, that's common for us, but it certainly doesn't seem to be common. I think the game that we played was the highest distance we've travelled this season in terms of high intensity. But equally, I thought it worked really well. You know, we had more regains in their half than any other team that's played Swansea this year. It's the least possession they've had in, I think, 15 months playing at this level. We had more shots at goal than we've had in any game this season. So when you take all those aspects into it, I think that's really promising for the players in terms of what they've delivered, but also should just reaffirm to the players in terms of the way we've went about it is going to be the right method for us. And listen, every game is not going to be similar to that because Swansea is a very unique team, but our approach won't be too dissimilar.
I was going to say, what else did you learn from Wednesday? But you
just told you all.
Answered that.
Yeah.
The crosses, Stoke had a considerable amount of crosses in the game. With the greatest respect, they could do with being better. So
what, in terms of the quality of cross? Yeah. I think I would probably argue in both fronts. I think the quality of cross could arguably been better. I think the movement in the box could have been better. Because it's like anything else, you can put good crosses into the box, but if the movement's not to get away from people, get across the front of them. So I think that you could probably level that sort of appraisal at both ends in terms of the quality cross on occasions could slightly be better, but I think the movement could most slightly be better as well. So yeah, it's probably 50-50 for me.
How have the players responded in training? I know you probably had a recovery day and trained today. How have you felt they responded to the messages you're trying to get across?
I think they've applied really well. You know, I think they're intelligent players. I think tactically I'm not asking them to do anything that they've never done before. I think, but when you combine it with all the different aspects of what I'm asking them to do, it seems quite a lot. I'd much prefer my first game that I had a sort of full clean week where I can work with the players and sort of bleed the messages in rather than having to go wallop with hundreds of sort of bits. And unfortunately we haven't had that luxury. You know, we've got another game coming up right away. So we've had limited time. But what I will say, the application of the lads who have been playing, application of the lads who haven't been playing, like for instance today, has been excellent. So yeah, they look as if they're sort of got a thirst for knowledge in terms of what do you want me to do, and I'll do it as best I can. So it's a great starting point for us.
Reading have had a good start to the season, albeit they had a difficult result on midweek. How do you see this game going, and what should we be looking out for as supporters?
Well, I think if you look at Reading so far, I think their home performances have certainly been stronger than their away performances, so that'll make it a difficult game to start with. I think some of the teams that they have beat have been really good scalps for them this season. But if you look at their players, they've got a lot of championship quality players, so I don't understand why people have sort of written them off in certain quarters in terms of what they're capable of doing this year, because you look across that team, they've got good players. But what I do think is, I think the first goal is going to be vitally important in the game, and I think if we can go and try and sort of put our stamp on them, then we've got a better chance of winning the match.
When you look at the injuries Stoke have had, and you know that there's been injuries before you arrived to some very important players, is there any way that your staff can minimise perhaps those injuries? I know some of them have been on the pitch, but it's not just been this season, it's been the season before. Is there any knowledge you have of why that might have happened, or has it just been bad luck?
I can't really comment on things that have happened prior to me coming in. That would be unfair to do so, because you need to know all the different variables that have went into that. What I do think is, so far, is we've got a lot of players just now that are on the pitch that have had very limited minutes in pre-season. You know, if you look at Sam Clucas, you look at Fox, you look at Delap, you look at Gale. I mean, that's nearly half the team already, and that's just off the top of my head. I'm sure there's more. So when you're going into a season and you've played very limited minutes, and then I'm asking them to play at a really high tempo and a really high intensity, the body's not used to it. You know, what we've been speaking about this week is getting us training and playing at an intensity that you're uncomfortable with, but doing it to a point where you do become comfortable, if that makes any sense. Because I think that's how you match the opponent for effort, for endeavour, for running, all these sort of bits. Because I think if you match all of that, your quality naturally comes out. But I think lesser teams will get the better of you if you're not prepared to match that. So that's something that's been a real focus so far.
You're talking about injuries and having to play people out of position.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if you feel you've got enough round pegs to play in round holes, but for example, Baker midweek, he had to probably play a little bit more defensive than you would have expected or hoped, because he can thread a pass, and even though he hit that shot from however far it was that hit the crossbar, it's a bit limiting to him, isn't it, to be in that position? Yeah,
I think arguably, I think he can do the number 6 role. I think for what I've seen so far, he's arguably better suited to playing as an 8. But I think certainly with Laurent missing and Kilkenny missing at the moment, we're a bit unfortunate in the fact that we don't have other options in there to do that role. You know, I'm sure some of the other lads might feel as if they can do it, but for what I've seen so far, the majority of our midfield players are best served further forward. And I think Bakes is experienced enough, he's done that role enough. Maybe potentially as a 2, which would slightly help him. But against Swansea, you can't afford to drop off and press 3v4 or 3v5. You'll never get the ball back. Hence the reason why they average nearly 70% possession every game. Whereas against us, I think it was 51-49. So that sort of put the game in our favour, if you like, in the fact we had much more of the ball. So, but yeah, like you say, I think there's arguably restrictions on Bakes at that point then, in terms of playing that role.
While we're on the injury front, were there any injuries picked up midweek?
Yeah, listen, there's always bumps and bruises and a bit niggles and knocks.
Yeah,
I think
Taylor looked like he was carrying a knock.
No, I think he'll be okay. So
I'm not trying to guess your team. I just
well, I'll find out probably more tomorrow. You know, because like you say, today for a lot of the lads, although we had them on the grass and they got a touch of the ball and they were out, normally second day recovery is when you're at your stiffest. So we'll be in a better position tomorrow to understand where we are.
And how far away from fitness are Powell and Loren, for example?
Powell trained today, so he's certainly making good progress. Laurent shouldn't be too far away, but he's not currently in the grass with the squad. So yeah, that's where we are.
When you get the full squad, will you be tempted to change it, or are you a sort of manager that wants to persevere with a group that you've started with to get consistency?
No, I think I'll pick the best team to suit to win the game. So if that means I need to change the shape, if it means I need to change the personnel, I'll do so. I'm not precious in any way, shape or form in terms of playing a particular style or particular personnel. The fact is, if somebody's not doing well enough or somebody else is showing up better, I'll change the team. So it's really quite straightforward.
And last from me, there was a new signing came in the transfer window. Can you tell us a little bit more about this and why you had this player come in?
Yeah, I think Dijon, obviously I've known him for a few years now. He's played championship level. He played last year with Blackpool, the year before he was at Wigan. He'd done 40 games in League One with Coventry. England Youth International. And what he is, he's powerful, he's quick, he's strong. He can cover the right side in terms of can play wing back, can play right back, can play right centre back. He's even played in the left on occasions at Blackpool. So I just felt that he's got experience in terms of playing at the level. He's powerful and he's quick, and he can cover a variety of positions, which I think certainly across the back line will be very useful for us at the moment.
So do you feel that, as he was the only one you got in, do you feel the balance is okay now going forward, or will you be looking to change things at the next transfer window?
No, well, listen, I think there's some positions that would naturally want a little bit more cover, but equally we've got some restrictions just now that we need to make sure that we don't overspend and we don't overdo anything. So we just need to sort of make do with where we currently are. But we have got good players. There's going to be certain areas that obviously we're hoping that we don't pick up injuries because we might be particularly light there. But I felt as if certainly if we could get one done, it takes a little bit of pressure off one area, albeit there might be some sort of slight weaknesses in other areas. But if we can keep everybody fit, we'll be fine. It's just to try to keep everybody fit. It's a difficult part.
Thank you. Good luck.
Cheers.
Does he come into your thoughts for tomorrow then? Do you saw him do John Alex?
No, I think unfortunately for Dijon, he's came with a little bit of a niggle, which I know is not particularly normal, but I think for what was available in the market and how good I think Dijon could potentially be for us, albeit he might not be available in the next game. I thought the signing made sense because he's going to be a signing that's going to be productive for us across the season rather than just in the short term. So yeah, it might take a little bit of time to get ready. It's not a significant, like he trained today for instance, so it's not as if he's not sitting in the treatment table picking up treatment. He's out in the grass, he's training. He's just had a little bit of limited time so far.
Were you happy with just the one recruitment coming in then, Alex, in terms of?
Listen, every manager up and down the country always wants more and everybody's greedy, so yeah, but at the end of the day, we are where we are. I understood the situation before I came into the building, so yeah, I'm more than happy with the squad that I've got.
As you say, Reading coming up next. Paul Ince had to go into there late on and save their season, if you want to recall it that, in the Championship. He's obviously had more time now, he's got his own, and they appear to have recruited quite well in this transfer window. And they will be a difficult opposition, you've already alluded to, because they're home form, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't think you get an easy game in the Championship, you know, because I think so far this season, if you read what people say at the start of the season, they write off certain teams, and I think every team they've written off started really, really well. So the Championship's probably the most unpredictable league that you'll get, you know, because I think if you can get a bit of consistency, a bit of momentum, keep the majority of players fit, get them organised, get them fit, you can really have a good season. Do you know what I mean? So I don't write off anybody. We go into every game with utmost respect for the opposition, but equally believing that we can win, and we go about our game that way.
You'll know enough about them because you obviously met Reading on several occasions, albeit on the different managements. Is Paul bringing anything different to what you've seen Reading side before?
Yeah, I think every team plays in a different manner when the manager changes. I mean, it might be slight tweaks, but there's always a significant difference somewhere along the line, and these are certainly be different. I've played against Reading when they've played a back four. They're currently playing a back three. So yeah, it's just we've watched them, we've seen them, we know what they look like, and we just need to go and make sure we play as well as we can.
Thank you, Alex.
Thank you.
After the Swansea game, you talked about intensity and belief. Now, you've already talked a bit about intensity, so I won't on the pitch, and I certainly saw evidence of that against Swansea. But how do you, because I think of anything that's been missing from this Stoke side in the last 4 or 5 years, it's belief. How do you instill that in a side and into individual players?
I think all players are different. You know, I think some players you need to take the pressure off them. So my method of doing that will be basically, listen, this is what I'm asking you to do. If you do that and it doesn't work, it's not your fault, it's my fault, because this is how I'm asking you to play. So go and get it done and it'll work, it'll be fine, and I just need to make sure in and around it. And I think other players respond to having more responsibility. You know, so putting more responsibility on their shoulders, because that's the type of sort of player they are to get the best out of themselves. So I just think for us, we need to really commit to what we're trying to do. You can't go into it half-baked. You do it half-baked, it's not going to work. You know, and listen, I've used, albeit different sort of shapes and different formations, I've used the same strategy at 5 different clubs now that I've managed and managed to have success with each and every one in different ways. So there's absolutely no reason why it can't work here, and it will work. We just need to get to a level where we understand it, we believe in it, and we carry it out as best we possibly can.